Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well. This is to welcome you to the first MCC Conversation, a series of webinars that we are going to do for the capacity building of our student body, of our community members who are a part of MCC, new ones, and also the ones who will be our community members in the future. My name is Noor, and I'm going to be having an interesting conversation today about the topic that we have set, which everybody keeps talking about. Specifically, those students who are in the academic side, they always come to us and ask us, what is my return on investment? How soon can I start making up the money that I'm investing in my education? How important it is for me to invest in my education, be it your undergraduate or your postgraduate studies. It is really about maximizing your own potential, learning what you have to learn for skills which are for the future, and specifically with all the technological advancement that is taking place with AI, with data analytics, with big data. It's really about what you can do to maximize your qualification and your portfolio. So let me welcome you today to the first MCC Conversations webinar series, and I'm so glad that my colleague Ata Sanal is joining us, and he is going to share his own experience of pursuing a master's from UK, and also looking at now the international opportunities working in international organizations. So hi Ata, how are you?
Hi, Noor. I'm well. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this.
Wonderful. We're happy to have you here as well, Lata. So, in now the next 30 minutes, we are going to talk about your journey starting off pursuing a qualification in the UK, in international, coming out of your home country, and coming out of your comfort zone. I'll ask you the first question. What was it that actually the research that you did, and what was the motivation behind you pursuing a master's abroad?
Specifically in the UK, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I done my undergraduate degree in the Netherlands. So I did my international relations degree in the University of Groningen in the north of the Netherlands. And towards the end of my degree, I decided that I wanted to focus on sustainability, environmental development, and these types of fields. After doing a considerable bit of research in Europe, I found that the United Kingdom offered the best degrees when it came to this genre of study. And to that end, I applied to several different universities in the United Kingdom. I applied to the University of Bristol, King's College London, London School of Economics, University of Edinburgh, and whatnot, Manchester. So I applied all across the United Kingdom for programs ranging from environmental governance, environmental policy making, to environmental development. And yeah, I felt that the United Kingdom offered the best options when it came to my area of interest specifically.
Wonderful. And how was the experience like? So, what was it that once you finally chose a provider? That's, I think, one of the most important thing. But what you're also mentioning is that pursuing a career path or a specialism of choice, that is also a very important task. So, what was your experience going through the assessment cycle and going through the, other student support community groups? What was the learning curve like for you?
Well, in my life, I've gone through several different curriculums, so to speak, and assessment styles, because I grew up initially in Turkey, and that country obviously has its own system. Then, at a relatively young age, I moved to the United Kingdom, where I went to an Australian school, and they had their own system, specifically the Queensland curriculum from Australia. Then, when I lived in the Netherlands, they have their own system. So, personally, for me, I'm relatively used to changing between different countries' academic systems, curriculums, marking systems. The United Kingdom is different from the Netherlands, so even the terminology is different with respect to modules and courses, and what the passing standard is, and even the time at which assignments are due. For example, that was of a given day. Um, for me, it was interesting. For me, doing a master's specifically, it was an interesting transition from doing an undergraduate degree, because in an undergraduate degree, uh, at least in my field of studies and social studies, the focus was a lot more on studying in the university. So there were more classes or more class hours. and there would be a higher number of assignments and modules you would take. But in a master's, I feel like they give you a much more initiative. They give you more room to grow, and the whole point of it is to pick your own specialty within the master's, because the master's programs are quite broad, and that's not in a bad way either. It gives you room to do what you want to specialize in. It doesn't pigeonhole people into specific little topics. So for example, I ended up doing. I had a passion for sustainable energy, so a lot of my assignments were themed towards that. Some people preferred water security. Some people preferred education. Some people preferred infrastructure development. I ended up doing my master's on the Antarctic Treaty System and the role of developing countries within that organization. Some people did it about climate change more broadly, and so it was quite varied. For me, it was an interesting transition. It wasn't necessarily difficult because of my history specifically. I can't imagine how it might be more challenging for others, but I think broadly, I think the universities do quite well, and they know they have a lot of international students, so they do try to ease them into it, and they are quite understanding.
And I think that's a wonderful experience, isn't it? That, once you have more initiative, like you're saying, that, you get to choose the areas that you're really passionate about, right? And you can then try to, develop, or I would say sculpt your career towards that particular goal. And I've seen so many students over the last 2 decades come in and out and say, we really should, what career or what job opportunity or what career pathway is the best, right? And they keep asking us, okay, what is the most lucrative thing? And I'm coming down to your support role, because I know you deal with students day in day out, a lot of different nationalities, a lot of different cultures. They have a lot of different ideas that they want to pursue. So what, in your experience, Ata, is where students come to you and ask you that, all right, Ata, what should be the goal? What should be the ultimate thing? Which career path should I go for? Everybody has a separate checklist, right? But in your experience, what do you think? What is your checklist when you are looking at, sculpting your own career choice? Is it just choosing the right course, or is it just, making sure that your dissertation or your thesis is epic? What is it additional that you think the checklist should include?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to a master's, and I would hold this opinion with respect to education more broadly as well, so an undergraduate degree as well as a master's degree. I think the most important thing that I've viewed as being particularly valuable is if you can engage in placements, if you engage in internships, and a lot of master's programs do offer that. Mine personally did. There was a specific module dedicated to internships where several companies were partnered with my university. I specifically ended up going to King's College in London, and many, many different companies joined up with King's College with their geography department to offer once a week, 2 days a week internship opportunities that you could do alongside your studies to students in the geography department. And naturally, being in London, and this would go for the United Kingdom more broadly as well, I think, there are a lot of international companies, there are a lot of big companies in the United Kingdom. So there are a lot of important, prestigious institutions that could partner with that university you end up going to, giving you that opportunity to work with them through the university. I personally ended up, working with a football club in South London during my internship, helping them make their operations more sustainable. So, and I've had friends and colleagues who joined up with more international companies, governments, councils, and all this. And so I think that is the key thing: some job opportunities, experience. Because obviously, the questions, as you mentioned, when you transition out of education, what do people look for? And naturally, the more practical thing that they look for is job experience. If
Yeah.
you know how to do things, because a lot of study, and I've come to find this, I think we're going to talk about this later, return
Yeah.
on investment.
Yeah.
Theory is all well and good, and a lot of studies about theory. Sometimes it gets a bit too theory intensive. And at the
Hmm.
end of the day, when you get into a job, it's not theory, it's, what you're doing in practice. So I think if you could shift to that as soon as possible during your studies, that would be the best. In my experience, a lot of students that I talk to, they work in different sectors. Some of them want to start their own businesses. So they have a more entrepreneurial mindset. But I would think that a lot of people, such as myself even, you don't necessarily end up working in the field that you study, but it gives you a perspective and it gives you transferable skills that you could use in other sectors. It's important to maybe focus on something, but don't let that limit you and limit your sight when it comes to opportunities outside of university.
Absolutely. I think very well said, Ata, that, when we're looking at just a program, right? All of us would be just like you're saying that, okay, quickly tell me how many subjects do I have to cover? Quickly tell me how many assessments and pieces of assessments do I have to do? Where we're talking about these transferable skills, it is so important, like you would also agree with me. And I think that a lot of the learning that you would have experienced while you were on that paid or unpaid internship or that placement, it would also be observational. It would also be, all right, some stuff which is very basic would be cultural alignment, for example. It is like, how are you using a good business communication between colleagues? How does that take place? How are you performing well within teams? Is there conflict management that you're looking at? If it's your own capacity building that you're focusing on, you would scrap on and be scrappy and just look at different opportunities that come your way. And that is, I feel, the real value that we are also talking about. I just want to highlight a little bit that at MCC we have programs, specifically the MBA program. Over decades and decades, we have had such a high demand of MBAs. But what is it that is changing? Like you've said, that even organizations are now looking for individuals who are thinking more out of the box. They are thinking more entrepreneurial. They're thinking about more creative ways in which they could perhaps look at employees, who are making up a bigger puzzle piece, and they're part of that puzzle piece where they're bringing in more innovation. They're making sure that the processes are more aligned, and that is something, Ata, that you would agree that once you are in that placement, you're able to experience that. And even cross culturally, like you're saying, that there are a lot of transferable skills that we also experience in the European, or I'd say the British side, when the British education is concerned. So let's talk about now these transferable skills that you were talking about. Um, in your experience, I want to focus on how important do you think, like, and you can share your personal goals as well. We'll try to connect it with, the wider goals. What do you do for your own capacity building, even after your master's is done and you are working in the mainstream profession? Uh, what other capacity building measures do you think that you take for yourself?
Well, I think the best thing you can do, and again, this rule will go pretty much anywhere in life. And I know I've only been alive for 24 years, so I'm not an elder, who's seen
Yeah.
the world, right? But in my life so far, I think the best thing you can do is not stray from any challenges. Don't be afraid of challenging yourself. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid of taking on extra responsibility.
Yeah.
Essentially, wherever you look, if you push for it, there will be chances at getting more responsibility, right? And as
Yeah.
far as your conscience is concerned, I feel like as long as you try, you should be good in that sense. Because a lot of time people appreciate it. People want their employees. Companies want their employees to grow within their companies, obviously.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you show that you have the acumen for that and the passion for that, you can, just whether it's knowledge of other departments, even tangentially, whether it's knowledge within your own department. If you just ask for more responsibility and when you're given that responsibility, do it well, right? Uh, Put some rigor into it, and you show that you are deserving of more responsibility. I think that will improve your capacity building skills. You will not only learn how to do new things, but those new things could be in complete different fields, and that might broaden your employment opportunities. It might even get you interested in different fields. I know a lot of people who started off in one field, for one reason or another, had some contact with another field of work, and they decided to shift over to that
Yeah.
field of work, and they never would have known that they were interested in that if they hadn't actually taken on some extra responsibility or come into contact with it. A lot of time, to get into that contact, you have to do some pushing. So I think
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. As you when you mentioned, working in, uh, you know, like transferable skills. When I would create my CV and when I would apply to universities and whatnot, I would always say, "Oh, I have experience working in, studying and living in cultural environments, multicultural environments, and
Yeah.
uh, I'm a good, good at teamwork and all this." I never actually knew what that meant until, for example, I came and studied in the United Kingdom alongside so many different people, or started working at a company like MCC, where we got a lot of people from different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to, see different people's different cultural backgrounds and their mindsets, because everyone approaches issues differently, and they have different, as you said, conflict resolution methods and teamworking methods. And once you get acquainted with that, that improves your capacity, as you said. You can work in different cultural settings and makes you efficient with respect to that as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think very well said, Atta, that all that we're speaking about right now is also just taking that first step. I believe is the hardest, right? And how does that first step actually take place? Wow, we are live. I forgot to mention, but we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So anybody who wants to plug in a question to us, feel free to do so, because we will be holding these series of conversations and speaking more about different sectors, different aspects. We will speak about different specializations that we have, and why you should pick the one that's absolutely the right for you, the right choice for you as well. So feel free to plug in your questions, and hopefully we'll be able to see it and take some questions as well. So just coming back to what we were talking about, skills for the future. That first step, I believe, is the hardest, Ata, because a lot of times when you have kicked off a career after, you could say, mainstream qualification, you're done with your graduation, you're done with your masters. Even more so, we're seeing a trend that a lot of students would prefer after graduation to go into mainstream work. Now, they have been working for the last 2 to 3 years, maybe 5 years, and now they see a plateau. They're not getting any promotions. They are not able to hop on from one job role to the other, and they are in that comfort zone. Well, they'll say, all right, as long as the money is coming in, I'll make myself happy with that. However, that is what essentially, when HR and when recruiters are looking at your resume, they'd be looking at that career trajectory. What is it that you have done to come out of that comfort zone and build up a career profile? It's not always about piling up qualifications on top of qualifications, and it's in the same subject area. You are free to diversify, look at different specializations, stuff that you can do to actually aid in your career, aid in your resume, and say, all right, I'm a well-rounded, a well-fitted professional who could pick up a role. We're talking about a little bit about the MBA as well, which MCC offers in partnership with UCAM, which is a university in Spain, very well reputed, very well, highly accredited. We'll leave the link, and hopefully everybody will be able to hop on and see the different MBAs that are there. What the qualifications essentially, like, let's say, a master's or an MBA or a topper, they essentially help you in channeling what you have perhaps studied many years ago, or perhaps you've never studied, and try to accommodate those learnings into the current today. And what is that ROI is what I'm going to ask Ata next. That, when you're talking about, oops, I can possibly not, maybe at this point of time, afford to, fund myself in an education, or maybe it's something that is too out of reach for me. So what is it that you do as a professional to then, put yourself and push yourself? It's always asking the right people and asking guidance, and asking and looking at ways in which you can evaluate what that investment is going to take you and where can it take you. So, Ada, what do you think? Like, let's internalize it a little bit. You have had a career which you've studied in multiple different locations with your for your undergrad, and then for your masters you came to the UK. How do you see this investment? Do you think it was a lost cause, or do you think that this was something that has really, really aided your career? At least you're on the right track.
I mean, I guess when I find, I'll let you know when I can find out the answer to that question. But
Fair enough.
I only graduated personally. My program ended at the tail end of 2024, but I technically graduated at the beginning of last year. So I've only been in employment for a couple years.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic that you'll break even on your investment this early. So don't pressure yourself and don't set those types of standards for yourself. But with respect to return on investment, it's essentially what you make it, right? It's all down to you at the end of the day. You can be somebody who, you can go to Oxford or you can go to Cambridge. You can go to, you know, MIT or some of the best universities in the world, and obviously those will be quite expensive, right? And that's just the tuition fees. I'm not even talking about all the other fees associated with living in big cities in the West. But and you can go to those universities, but if you don't take initiative, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this until I got into the workplace. Either networking. People keep talking about networking, and a lot of the time when you're in uni, you say whatever. Who cares about networking? I don't want to talk to random people, right? And that's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't. But networking can help because it'll make you aware of opportunities that you didn't even know existed. And it will help. With respect to return on investment, again, it is what you make it. Obviously, the better your education is, it's a very competitive world, especially this day and age. People will think, I have friends from back home who say, "Oh, well, you studied in a British university, right? You went to, you studied in London, so you should have a pretty easy time finding a good job." But I'm in London. I'm competing against all these other people in London,
Yeah.
and the way that job applications work now, before historically, so my dad would tell me, you would apply for a job, almost physically a lot of the time. You would go in to an office. You would, it was much more localized. Now you can apply for any position around the entire world. So now the
Absolutely.
world is more competitive than it's ever been. And so when it comes to your education, obviously that gives you a head start. Those job opportunities within your education, if you decide to pursue them, those give you a bit of a head start. That networking, right? Those who who you meet, right? That gives you a head start. But most importantly, again, it all comes down to you: how much initiative you want to take, how much do you want to challenge yourself once you're in the workplace, even when you're not there yet, right? Taking
Yeah.
unpaid internships and whatnot. A lot of the time when you're in a company, companies will offer programs, right? Certification programs, and sometimes they'll be voluntary. Sometimes it'll be competitive. Employees within a company would have to compete for it. Just do your best with respect to that. And in a very competitive world, I think that would be your best choice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And rightly said. And I think one big, huge missed opportunity is where learners from across the globe, they are, sitting and hovering about, whether this is the right opportunity for me. Just ask. I think what you've rightly said is, Ata, that in terms of now the transnational education space as we look at it is so vast, it's so huge, and like you're saying that you have to build up a networking and your investment, they do not go hand in hand. There are two things that you can easily do, provided you have the right skill set, you have the right kind of, I would say, grit, the right kind of vision where you could actually exercise and be in touch. I mean, all of the people who are going to be watching us can, feel free to reach out to us. And, that's how your networking essentially begins. When we're looking at online delivery programs, somehow there are, I would assume that for a few people the myth is that they don't have the same rigor. That is a huge myth, you guys. Just look at what you are able to achieve in terms of sitting in your home. You are pursuing a qualification that's exactly the same, and you're interacting with people across the globe, like Ada is saying, and that networking builds up. It builds up whether you're joining webinars, whether you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn and asking them for coaching advice, whether you're getting a coach to mentor you, guide you on your subject area of choice. So that is something that also builds up your portfolio. So the MBAs then that we're talking about are exactly on the same trajectory, which is all online transnational education. We're getting qualification from MCC, supported, partnered by UCAM, wherever you are in the world. We have a few questions coming in. Um, so let's talk about let's take the first question and say that how does a master's change how employers view a candidate? That's a good one. Ata. Would you want to take that up first, and then I can chime in?
Well, I mean, in my experience, it depends a bit on the field you're looking at. So, in
Mhm.
education, for instance, obviously, if you have a master's as opposed to just an undergraduate degree, it provides you with more teaching opportunities. For example, in order to teach, an undergraduate class, you need to be a level, education level above the people you're teaching. So, a master's degree automatically makes you a bit more qualified in that field. Now, with respect to other fields, it might showcase that you have more knowledge regarding specific topic areas if you
Yeah.
decide to specialize in a master's using a master's, because as I mentioned, a master's allows you more room to specialize when it comes to certain things. Um, and as well as more job, I know with other undergraduate degrees, you could also pursue internships and placements. But I believe in my experience, it's more focused on in masters. In master's degrees, it's a combination of self-study, a lot of time you do it at home, combined with job experience, and then both of those combined lead to a dissertation which you specialize on. And depending on what you specialize on, that can make you more qualified within relevant fields regarding that as well. So uh, it's again, it's what you make it. It's not just a click of the finger. Oh, I have a higher degree now. Sometimes it is, but in other respects, again, it's up to what you do with the degree.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'll also echo that just to answer the question that employers generally look at this as kind of like also somebody who has shown that they are willing to come out of their comfort zone and learn more. So that's also one thing which shows that, all right, you're on a consistent, you could say your educational development is consistent. For a lot of professionals that I know of who have been asked by their companies, like I said, that once they reach that plateau and they are unable to, look at the next promotion, and then there is a youngish guy like Ata who is coming with a fresh master's degree, which is international, and saying, "All right, 24-year-old, you are now the boss, and this person who has been with the organization for 20 years has to report to that young boss." So in that case is where that I would say that academic qualification, that professional rigor that qualification brings, and what you are able to identify your area of specialism, that really helps. When I started off the session by saying that there are so many specialisms that are now available in which you should be looking at programs that are not too generic, but focus on areas where you feel that you can value add to organizations. Stuff like blockchain, like AI. You could look into healthcare systems. We do know that the world has gone through a crisis where even doctors have been asked to do like business administration qualifications. Why? Because they're excellent technical doctors with super knowledge, but they don't know how to operate, let's say, a hospital system. So they have to do that. There are lots and lots of questions coming in. Oh, this is a good one. Let's take this one, Nata. So I hope you can see on the chat, but let me see if you can. Let me show this question so that everybody on the stream can see this. So, how does postgraduate study improve communication and leadership presence? Excellent question. Go ahead, Ata.
Communication and leadership presence. I guess it would depend on what you mean by presence specifically, but again, it depends on what you do in a master's. Master's projects might have more focus on group projects. I've had experience where I've had to lead these large during my internship group projects. I had to lead. It was essentially a consultancy project for a football club in South London, and personally I volunteered to be the group project for that. So, for instance, during the group project, I would regularly liaise with the company officials and as well as our representative from the university, regularly hold meetings, regularly exchange ideas, coordinate between team members, guide them, essentially allocate resources and do a bit of HRing, so to speak, to produce a good outcome. And then we present that to the client, and that's just one example. It gives you opportunities like that, but again, you have to volunteer for it. And if you do make good use of it, you can actually gain experience that might actually benefit you down the line. Because group project in a university environment, people might think is different than, for example, in a work environment. But there's a lot of overlap. There's a
Yeah.
lot of overlap where you tell people kind of what to do. You don't want to sound too pushy about it. You don't want to sound too overwhelming about it, but you want them to do something, and you want to allocate tasks, and you want to do it efficiently. So, that's just one example. And again, as a part of that, you communicate with people. And master's degrees, I've come, in my experience, have a bit more international presence. So you learn to communicate with
Mhm.
people from different cultural backgrounds as well. So yeah, and it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, let me chime in on that. So essentially what we do on the back end, just to answer your question, um, that at MCC what we do is that we have, if we have an online master's program that we are um, offering, the rigor of, let's say, communication is still the same. You're still supposed to make presentations. You're still supposed to share your ideas. You're still supposed to conduct your desk research, and then on ground research as well. That generates a lot of leadership experience, like when you're working in teams and you're able to like present something, whether it's a case study, whether it's something that is has to do with your dissertation, with your thesis. That in itself, conforming to a deadline, conforming to your assessor's feedback, taking the constructive feedback as an area of improvement, making sure that the final product that you are developing in terms of your project proposal, or essentially what your final product in terms of your thesis submission looks like, it all has to and automatically does adds to your leadership and communication experience. So these are two absolutely, I would say, vital qualities that even recruiters look for. So Fatma was asking that how does a master's change how employers view a candidate? Well, this is exactly what they look at. You give them a talking point when you have a thesis that's, let's say, based on sustainable energy. And if an employer asks Ata tomorrow that, okay, Ata, how can you work to make this office green? That's a starting point. That's a conversation starter when you're sitting in an interview. That is something that creates that kind of excitement. A lot of candidates would also ask us time and time again that, oh my God, why is my resume not getting selected? I have sent over 2,000 CVs and I didn't get a response. It's just that excitement that you have to build up, that needs to cut the clutter, and it all comes in from your um, a different experience that you are pursuing. There's another question. Let's take this as well, and see how we can answer that. So, is an MBA more valuable for entrepreneurs or corporate professionals? Interesting question. I'll take the first go on this, Tata, and then you could build up. Well, I come from a business background, okay? So I feel very strongly about this question. Um, when you talk about the word administration, right? It's For me, it's something which is really, really strong. When you look at the word manager, or if you're giving somebody the title of a manager, then that means that that person has not only the mental capacity or the mental acumen or the educational acumen, but that person also has the skill set that is needed to do troubleshooting, that is needed to start from scratch, something that you've already developed, chuck it off, start from scratch, somebody who is able to provide solutions really quickly, somebody who is able to solve problems, be a team player. Don't let your creativity and innovation take a hike over feasibility. All of that if you feel that are skills that are important for organizations, then whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you are a corporate professional who is working, an MBA actually guides you and fits you into that picture and sculpt you in that way in which you can actually um, say that I've gone through this rigor. What do you think, Ata? Do you agree?
I mean, I'll defer to your judgment on this one.
Okay, go
You know,
ahead.
my background isn't as business centric, so I mean, what you're saying sounds completely logical. I'll go with it.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So I hope this one carries the not a problem. We have a question. Oh, sorry, somebody who caught in late. Don't worry, the recording is going to be available on the YouTube. Yes, this is a fully online qualification that MCC is offering, and this is with UCAM. University in Spain. I'll just display the link so that you're able to see and get more information on how we teach, what the different disciplines are. And then there is a contact info email where you could reach out to our colleagues who can give you, sit down with you and offer you more information on this as well. So you'd be able to look into this. All right, I think we've pretty much covered all of the questions, and we're a little bit ahead of time. We said that we are going to keep it at 30 minutes, but never mind. We're just like 7 minutes above. So let's talk about some final comments. So anybody who is just on the fence of whether a master's, yay or nay, what would you like to tell them? Any advice?
I mean, it would depend on where you're at and what your ambitions are. If you're happy where you are and you're completely fine with where you are in life, then you know, a master's just opens possibilities for you. But if you feel okay, I'm going to do a master's, but I don't, I'm completely happy where I am. I don't know, I don't really care much if it's going to move me to a, higher employability level. Then probably more on the nay side, unless it's a scholarship funded one, for instance. Masters, especially in abroad, could be expensive, and obviously the return on investment is a big topic. So if you feel like you really need it and you're really going to use it and you have the passion for it, then yeah, that would be a yay. And then with that passion, I think you can get a return on investment. Granted, you might need to do a couple things, as we mentioned throughout this webinar. Network, work hard, take on challenges, make yourself employable. And I know a lot of that's easier said than done,
Yeah.
but it depends. If you're happy with where you are and you're completely content in life, then and it's not scholarship funded, maybe an A. But if you're looking for new things, if you want to become more employable, if you want to push yourself forward, I'd go with a yay.
Yeah, similarly, I think very similar, and uh, I think if you're somebody who is like Ata is saying, who is on the fence about, all right, whether there's a scholarship for this particular program that MCC is offering. Yes, there is a scholarship. Yes, we do look at your background, what you have done. It's not just about your academic abilities, but also about what extra I wouldn't say curricular, but in terms of the depth of your work experience, that is truly reflected on whether you want to go in for that scholarship. Yes, the program is 100% online, which does not mean that the rigor is going to be any less, but it's been taught by international teachers. The curriculum has been accredited, approved by the this European Spanish University UCAM. And what essentially we're looking at is just giving those people who are um, who feel that the investment is a big deal for them, they should be able to look at the ROI and look at this particular program, which is a fraction of the cost of what it would cost you to do the program in person. I think one thing that we should all learn from professional bodies and people who are members of different professional bodies, who like to keep their CPD records updated and like to be affiliated with professional bodies, get these memberships, they would agree with me that wherever you are in the world, you're also taking a membership of an award of a professional body because you want to add that badge next to your name, right? So if you want to call yourself a fellow member of XYZ awarding body, it will always have that, I would say, that mark where that gold star, which will say, all right, wherever you are in the world, you're part of the community. So that is what essentially is important when you're looking at programs that offer the same rigor. They're online, but they are at a fraction of a cost. There's a user who's saying the global management MBA sounds good to me. Well, thank you so much. It sounds good to us as well. But I think what's really important is that on this link that I'm sharing, just go through and look at the different disciplines that we have and look at areas in which you could use that global management experience to the best of your um, I think professional growth, and also focusing on transferable skills. So on that note, let us close today's MCC conversation, the first webinar in the series. There are many more that we have to follow. If you want to know more about us, that's our website address, magnacartacollege.ac.uk. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to speak to Ata and get more experience, get more insights from him as to pursuing a qualification in the UK and how it has entailed. Feel free to reach out to him. I hope that that's okay for anybody who wants to
Completely
reach out.
fine.
Completely all right. So you can look him up on LinkedIn, and he'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much, Ata, for your time this evening.
Yeah, no worries.
We hope to see everybody, all of our audiences who is joining us from different social media channels. We hope to see you in another 2 weeks with another MCC conversation. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Have a great evening. Bye bye.
Bye bye.